We're continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Chot Shabbat, and we're up to Siman Shin on Daf Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph, the regular prince of your Mishna Beruras, discussing the Seudah of Motzei Shabbat. Le'olam yesader Adam Shulchano b'Motzei Shabbat. This is straight up from the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat Daf Kuf Yutet. The person should have a ready, beautifully set table on Motzei Shabbat, kedeh lelavot et Shabbat, in order to escort Shabbat out with a seudah of melaveh malka, we call it, which means this to escort the queen. Afilu eno sarich ela lekazait, even though that you may not be eating more than a kazait, you're full. It's a winter time, deep in the winter. You have very short days, and you could be completely full still. But nevertheless, you want the seudah to look good. It's not a matter of what you're going to be eating. It's a matter of the seudah being set properly, which is again a mitzvah in certain some families. It could be considered a met mitzvah. People after Shabbat, everyone is doing their own thing, and it's something that gets neglected. You could have beautifully set 3 seudot of Shabbat, but it comes to Melaveh Malka and people are going out. People, everyone comes in a different time and says Havdalah, and makes a little bracha even if they wash on a pizza or on something else. It's like an arai. So Shulchan Aruch is exactly talking to that point. So even if you're not eating a lot, but having a seudah that's mechubedet, is respectful, kavadik, that is something that is important to keep in mind. Obviously, the Zohar HaKadosh says that a person that does not do seudah of melaveh malka, seudah revi'it, chas v'shalom, is as though he did not even do seudah shlishit either. This is what the Chesed Alafim, Rabbi Eliezer Papa, brings this from Zohar HaKadosh. But nevertheless, you have to be very careful. Says Maran Chida in Seudah Revi'it, that Ben Ish Chai writes in Rav Pa'alim Chelek Gimel in Orach Chaim Siman Lamed Hey, and Rav Chaim Panchermoli in Petach HaDevir from Izmir, from Turkey, he also writes the same thing. This is again the discussion whether or not the Seudah Revi'it is an obligation from Torah, from the Rabbanan, or it's not even a obligation. Maybe it's just a mitzvah min hamuvchar. It's a discussion that has been written about in the poskim, extensively written in the poskim, and the importance of it obviously is not to be taken lightly. The story that's brought in Tosefet Maserav. Maserav is a sefer written on the minhagim of the Vilna Gaon. It's brought a story to explain the importance of Seudah Revi'it, that the Vilna Gaon one time was sick, was not feeling well on Motzei Shabbat, and he was vomiting. He was not well. So it's the question of how he's going to be Mekayem Seudah Revi'it. Of course, he couldn't eat anything. He couldn't eat Seudah Revi'it, and he went to sleep, and his stomach was more calm, and he told his people in the household that they should go check to see if Amud Shachar has not been yet, that he should be able to eat at least the kazayit pat, and they should feed it to him, even bal korcho, with a spoon, in order for him to be mekayem seudah revi'it. This is again important items. But obviously Mikar Adin does not agree that this is something that should be done, but you see how important it was for the Vilna Gaon. The Ben Ish Chai writes that the level, the ma'ala of Seudah Revi'it is so great that saves a person from chibut hakever. Now, what's chibut hakever? um, Kabbalistically speaking, the first night after a body is buried, after Ptira, there are certain heavy levels of judgment on the neshama, which we call, in a simple level, we call chibut hakever, and that judgment does not exist in certain scenarios. For instance, a person that's buried on Friday, the Friday night, it's the first night after Kivura, Friday night does not have, Leil Shabbat does not have chibut hakever, but says the Ben Ish Chai, this is discussed by Rabbi Nachman Azariah Mipano, Ramah Mipano as well, that was also one of the Poskei HaMekubalim, that a person that respects the Shabbat in its exit by proper Sudat Menav Malka will be Nitzol, will be saved from the Tsar of Chibut HaKever. Fine. Now, women also are Hayav Suda Revi'it. Same thing that the Mateh Moshe writes, that there's a bone in the person with a specific name, right? We call it luz, but it has a different name, that the Tchiyat HaMetim is going to happen from it, and so on and so forth. And that bone is only nizon, only gets sustenance from the Suda of Melav Malka. So therefore, even women should be careful in the Suda of Melav Malka as well, even though that's Motzei Shabbat, and it will be a mitzvah daseh shazman graba, even if it would be a mitzvah daseh. So therefore, a person should be careful, even women. Says the Mishnah. That's just the preface. The Mishna Berura says, "Lifros mapa al shulchano derech kavod." What it means to set up, it means you have a proper tablecloth, respectful. Whatever else you usually have when you set up a table, you're not mechuyav to make a 3-course meal if you're just going to be eating a kazayit. That's not part of the chiyuv, but you want the table to look bekavod. It's proper. It's a set suda. It's not just derech arai that you take a plate and you walk around the house eating. It's not that's not what it should be. That a person should wash on bread and not just have mezonot or fruits. It also is brought down. The Ben Ish Chai brings it in Sefer Mekafsel. The Kaf Chaim brings it. That person should not take off their Bigdei Shabbat until after they bench for Sudar Revi'it. You want to eat Sudar Revi'it with Bigdei Shabbat still on, says the Kaf Chaim Palaji, and also it's brought in again the Ben Ish Chai. But Mishna Berura says that just like you want to eat on a Suda, on a table that's respectful, Motzei Shabbat also should be this way. So also you should have meat, or at least other tafshilin, the respectful items, food items, if you can afford. If you don't have it, or that you have eaten enough and you're full, basically, you don't want to have achila gasa, then you could do it with mezonot, say a little mezonot on a cookie, on a cake, or kol panim beperot, or at least with fruits and vegetables. You want to respect Shabbat, not just when he comes in, but also when we kind of like send off Shabbat until next week. Also, we want it to be bekavod, we want it to be respectful. Now, if a person cannot eat bread, it's good to eat. It's better. Chatchila you should, but if you can't, then it's like a hierarchy that you go down the hierarchy line, that you do pataba bekisnin lechatchila. After that will be having mezonot, or at least you'll have fruits and vegetables, as the Mishna Berura said, and the Ben Ish Chai says basically the same thing. Now, having the Seudah with just the wine of Havdalah, how about that? You're telling me that you could do fruits and vegetables. Maybe I could just have a revi'it of wine, just like in Shabbat itself is considered Kiddush B'Mokom Seudah if you have a revi'it of wine. Can I have that as my Seudah revi'it? The son of Rav Chaim Palaji, Rabbi Yitzchak Palaji, writes in Yafei Lev that is not going to be any less than having a kazait of dagan, of mezonot. So therefore, he says you could technically be yotze if you really are not doing well. You could have just a revi'it of the cup of Havdalah, and that would also be considered with the Eved as your Seudah revi'it. Now, when Rosh Chodesh falls to be a Motzei Shabbat, or Motzei Shabbat that falls to be on Chol HaMoed, you say Shabbat Chol HaMoed, Motzei Shabbat of that, in Seudah Revi'it, one Seudah that you eat, you're going to be Yotze, the Seudah of Rosh Chodesh on Chol HaMoed as well. It's pashut. It doesn't need to necessarily to be said, but you could double dip basically on what this Seudah is considered. So on Rosh Chodesh, the person should have one Seudah. So if you felt to be on Motzei Shabbat, tomorrow morning someone says, "Oh, Rosh Chodesh, Seudah, Rosh Chodesh." You're thinking, last night I had Seudah. So, oh, that was Seudah Revit. No, it could be considered Seudah Revit and Seudah Rosh Chodesh together, or Seudah Chol HaMoed as well. So that's the coverage that you get.
You don't need to eat extra like the Ben Ish Chai? Like he says by Shabbat Rosh Chodesh?
And well, you may eat a little extra, but that's not the question. The question is, do you have to have a separate Seudah for Rosh Chodesh than the Seudah Merav Malka, because that's the type of question that it is. And the answer is no. You could be also both concepts with one Seudah. Both concepts could be, I want to eat more, but that's obviously more respectful. The Arizal also writes that you should have lechem mishneh lechatchila and Seudah Revit. So it's not just the Seudot of Shabbat, but even in Seudah Revit you should have two, but it says, well, for Hamotzi you only take one of them. So it's a very interesting phenomenon. It's not as your regular lechem mishneh. And he also writes that Motzei Shabbat you should, in Birkat Hamazon, say migdol, not magdil, but migdol still. The he'ara of Shabbat still there. Again, magdil shod mako or migdol shod mako is two different psukim in Tarach. One in Nevi'im, one in Ketuvim. So the one that's a higher level is Migdol. Also, grammatically, Migdol is the climax. Magdil is still becoming bigger and bigger. Climaxed is Migdol. So therefore, on Shabbatot v'Yamim Tovim, we mention Migdol. Now, what's that?
Who says we should say that?
The Ari Kadosh, and the Rab Chaim. This is really Rab Chaim Palaji, Kaf Chaim as well, but it's brought in the earlier sources. I believe it's brought in the Ari Kadosh, but it's certainly in the Kaf Chaim, both Kaf Chaim Palaji and Kaf Chaim Sofer. Now, Chazal say in Masechet Shabbat, Daf Kuf Yutet Amud Bet, that having hot food, hot drinks on Motzei Shabbat, if you have, like, let's say, a bread that has been baked and then it became cooled off, and now you're heating it up again, and you want to have this on Motzei Shabbat, the Gemara writes Chamin b'Motzei Shabbat, that you should have for both washing your hands, taking a shower, or for drinking. It will be melugma. It's a refuah. It's a good thing. So, which means that you want to have on Motzei Shabbat something hot after the day that And again, time of Chazal especially, certain things were not heated up during the course of the day. But you could have even something that was cooled off, bread that was baked, doesn't have to be necessarily fresh baked, and it cooled off, and you warm it up again. Fine. So says the Mishna Berura. Says the Mishna Berura over here in the next Seif Katan Bet, כדי ללוות, כשם שצריך לכבד את השבת בכניסתה, כן צריך לכבדה ביציאתה, כשם שאדם מלווה את המלך בצאתו מן העיר. This is you escorting the king out of town, ומטעם זה נראה שטוב להקדימה כדי שתהיה סמוכה ליציאת השבת. Says the Mishna Berura, the earlier you do it, the better it will be halachically, because it's closer to the kedusha of the Shabbat. But if you have no appetite, the best would be, at least don't go and set yourself up for a melacha until you actually do the mitzvah of Melav Malka. And says the Sha'arei Tshuva, Chafetz Chaim quotes it in Mishna Berura, you don't want it to be later than halachic midnight. He brings the comments that we brought before, that there is an ever, there's a bone in the person, it's called niskoi, we call it luz. It stays intact until Tchiyat HaMetim. Even after everything rots, this one small thing is going to stay, and that only benefits and gets sustenance from Seudah of Melav Malka. Again, Chafetz Chaim bringing this as an important item that he codifies it la'alacha, umikol makom, seudah zu ena chova alav kemo shalosh seudah. It's not the same level of obligation. It's important, but it's not the same level of obligation as the 3 seudot that we have prior on Shabbat. It is mitzvah ba'alma. It's a mitzvah to eat seudah revi'it. If you can't really do all of them, then you skip this one and you'll do the other 3. One more piece here at the Shabbat, that you should do Seudat Motzei Shabbat כדי ללוות את השבת, in order to escort Shabbat. ומטעם זה יש נוהגים להרבות נרות במוצאי Shabbat. Many people have a lot of candles on Motzei Shabbat, more than regular. There's more lights than regular, because again, ba'urim kabedu Hashem, lights brings happiness, brings kavod, and that's how they respect Motzei Shabbat as a means of escorting Shabbat out. Setting a table, having beautiful lighting and ambiance is all part of this as well, which concludes Siman Shin. B'ezrat Hashem, we will start a whole new topic of Hotza'ah on Shabbat, carrying on Shabbat, what things you could wear, what things you can't wear. Can you wear your watch? Can you wear a necklace? Men, women, rings, all those things of carrying on Shabbat. These are the items that we will start, B'ezrat Hashem, discussing in the days to come.